Yeah, I'm starting now. Well, it is my pleasure and pride to introduce our speaker, Dr. R.A.J. Rao. Dr. R. Rao, the first president of PROBUS Global of Hyderabad. He was the president of the club from 2020 to 2022 during the most difficult period of the club due to COVID-19 pandemic. However, by innovative, interesting programs like online game, recitation, songs, skits, and childhood experience of each member in the program, the club under the president Dr. Rao became very vibrant and we overcome this problem. Dr. Rao is a BSc with double first class, metallurgical engineer from IIT Bombay with first class honors, Paru University, USA, and NIT Warangal. He has over 50 years professional experience in Mukund Limited, International Nickel UK Limited, and RPJ Enterprises in the fields of quality, technology, research, manufacturing, a business management school in Mumbai. Dr. Rao authored over 80 papers and published 5 books on technology and management. He was first chairman of Indian Institute of Metals, Mumbai chapter, visiting professor of IIT, member of Technology and Quality Improvement Committee of Indian Merchants Chamber, senior member American Society for Quality, and is associated with several other professional bodies, including National Center for Quality Management, Mumbai, as its first president. Dr. Rao won several awards and honors during his distinguished career. Prominent among them are life membership of IIM, National Award for Meritorious Invention, Distinguished Alumni of Award of IIT Bombay, Nikon Award of USA, Sri Santi Kumar KTO Award, Professor Banerjee PG Enterprises Outstanding Achiever Award, and the Tarneja Award, to name a few. In 2019, he received a US patent for his invention on optimizing usage of water and other resources. Dr. Rao is passionately promoting performance excellence in both schools and colleges. As president, SBM Keshav Nagar Samiti, he is guiding to impart quality education to around 300 primary and secondary economical needy school-going children in Hyderabad. This is our today's speaker, Dr. R.A.J. Rao, past president of Hyderabad Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Dr. Rao.
I did see him earlier, Dick.
There is always some disruption.
Rao, you have to unmute yourself. He's muted.
Dr. Rao, you are muted.
This is good. Find him on the list here. I'll get it to pop up. You see him in the list?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Mr. Richard Furlong, organizing members of today's program of PROBUS Global, Brilliance across the globe, and friends. Namaste to all of you. What a pleasure to be with you this morning and address you about the current positioning of my dear country, India, to global significance. I thank my friend Ram the founder president of PROBUS Club of Hyderabad, for introducing me. I also thank the members of PROBUS Club of Hyderabad, PROBUS Club of Chennai, members of other clubs, and invitees who joined us today. I was attracted to be a member of PROBUS Club of Hyderabad a few years back. As I was influenced by the objectives of PROBUS Club, such as friendship, frolic, and fellowship among the elderly achievers, with a smile and with a laugh. Achievers with passion and pride. We all lose out that quality. Myself and my wife are committed for the success of PROBUS Club of Hyderabad in India. I have decided to extend similar commitment to PROBUS Global when I heard of it. With PROBUS Global, I have added another important qualification to myself. I am the first PROBUS Global member from India. My wife is the second member. Ram, who introduced me, and his charming wife, Nanda, are the third and fourth members from India. I believe this is just a beginning. With our commitment to PROBUS vision, PROBUS global vision and mission, we are working towards enhancing the PROBUS global membership in India. Let's hope in the next 12 months or so, we will have many more members from India registered as PROBUS global members. With these few initial words, I'll move towards the subject of my today's talk, which I'll be making through a PowerPoint presentation. Can all of you see, please?
No, you're not up yet, Dr. Roth.
Pardon?
You haven't shared your screen yet.
Are you able to see? No?
No,
Oh, I can see you.
no, his presentation.
Can you see
Ah,
these
okay.
slides? Okay.
Are
Shall
you
I go ahead?
Please talking about your presentation is not yet on the screen.
Your presentation is not visible.
Presentation is not visible.
Gotta push the green share screen button.
1 minute, please. 1 minute. I think a similar problem happened earlier.
Now it is visible, sir.
Share this screen.
There you go.
Not visible yet.
Hello?
Can you see? Can you see now?
Yes, we can.
చేస్తున్నాము చేస్తున్నాం
Wait,
Okay. Shall I
your
go
screen.
ahead, please?
No, I think there's a problem and the 40-minute limit
There you
is
go.
coming in. Now it's there. Okay. We can see you.
Can you see now?
Yes.
I can see it in Belgium.
Okay. Shall I proceed, please?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, I hope nothing is coming in the way. Madaru?
It is fine, sir. You can start.
Okay, good. So today I'll be talking on the subject India, a re-emerging brilliance. If we look at the country, I tend to feel that the greatest assets of India are that we have a vast majority of intellectuals serving the needs of humankind. By this, what I mean is, there is a general thought in our country that whatever we do must be helpful to the humankind at large. It need not necessarily be only to Indians. Particularly in the last few years, we have a relatively high youthful population whose contributions have been recognized globally. And the efforts from our side, because of I could make out from the association with the academia and industries, etc., etc. When we talk in terms of our performances, we think in terms of the quality of life. There is a very strong feeling among the educated lot in this country that the personal quality cannot be separated from the professional quality. So to that extent, there is a linkage, there is a focus on enhancing the personal quality also simultaneously when professional performances are addressed. In this half an hour to 45 minutes, I'll introduce this topic of mine. And since the subject is pretty large and a huge canvas, I picked up only a few key areas, such as quality, technology. When I say technology, it is primarily the information technology. Of course, while I will also touch upon the regular businesses, I'll touch upon the work culture. There is a significant change in the work culture in India in the last few decades. I'll focus on the medical services, the education and training, and also the learning processes that we are able to see now in this country. I'll say a few words concerning the skill development before I summarize, stating where India is at this moment vis-a-vis the global positioning. Before I conclude my talk, and thanking those during this particular 6 months or so of my working on this paper, I had interviewed several people, I interacted with several experts, and I would acknowledge them before I close my talk. The whole exercise started when Richard, as the president of Global, he shared an audio video in the month of, if I remember correct, in January 2022, just 3-4 months back, showcasing India as a rising superpower. That video talked about India as the third largest economy, and it talked about the defense forces which India has, very successful missile program, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, etc. How India looks at the world as a family, and in the normal production lines, including how India has grown in the development and production of automobiles, smartphones, etc., etc. And also, it also talked about a large number of Indians who are contributing by staying in other countries, and also some of them heading some of the large organizations, including the IT companies, and the focus that is there in this country on the modern infrastructure. So Richard invited me then to address the PROBUS Global on India's past and current initiatives which have led to a positioning of this country to this level. Hence this talk. If I go back into a bit of history, and I'm referring here in the slide itself, the presentation or the preparation by one R. Kirk, when he talked on, or when he presented us the history of India, pretty detailed presentation. It was a very large economy for centuries prior to colonization. India was under British rule for almost 2 centuries. Before British took over India, during the 17th century, India had about a quarter of world GDP. That was the extent of richness of the country. After that, during the 2 centuries, it declined. We must say primarily due to the colonization. By the year 1950, the India's GDP was only 4.2% of world GDP. That was the impact. It has slowly picked up to a level of now, currently around 6.8%. Though we may claim that, or I was told that it is the third largest after China and USA. India got independence in the year 1947. Immediately thereafter, it was a socialistic government for a period of almost 45 years. And socialist government was chosen primarily to the nascent independent country to have the controls under the government. There was a very powerful what we call license Raj. Anything we wanted to do immediately after independence, we needed license. We needed approval from Government of India. Large industries, including steel production, was under government control. It went through, while there was a certain degree of development, and more importantly, in the country, the institutions were well established. The country had respect for democracy. The country had respect for parliament, judiciary, etc., etc., while the countries around India were going through several problems as far as the governments and their managements were concerned. But the flip side was that Indian manufacturing capability was not competitive globally. The premium was that a low levels of efficiency. In fact, at that time, I was working with a steel company in Mumbai. At that time, it was called Bombay. And we had a licensed capacity to produce X tons of steels a month. When we increased the productivity and our production went beyond X, we were pulled up by the government. Sorry, you have crossed the license capacity and you should not do that. Hence, the product and the service from India was not to global standards. We didn't have the customer focus. We didn't have quality products, etc., etc. So there was a realization during 1990 or even a year earlier that it is time that we open up Indian economy to global competition. It was in the year 1991, therefore, the government controls were substantially taken off. There was incentive for increasing the efficiencies, etc., etc. The significant rapid GDP growth and even associated growths in various sectors can be seen in the country in the last 30 years. More so in the last 10 years. Consequently, today, the entire workforce, including the youth, there is a significant amount of commitment visible. It's conspicuous to revive the past glory and perform ourselves as global citizens. Several initiatives were taken, please, in the last 30 years, and I have papers on that particular subject, but I sort of cut them short. And I found among all the initiatives that were there, the attempts which were focused on the business imperatives, that's quality, productivity, technology, and change management, they were the ones I picked up, though there were several other initiatives in the last 30 years. And I said that developments of last decade also are most impressive. And whatever subsequent presentation of mine had a significant focus on the last decade performance of the country, more so in the last 5 years. Yes, while I say this, I must appreciate, we all should appreciate there's a lot to do still in the country. Here again, since it is a vast subject, I would cover just only a few key areas. The first and foremost I felt was responsible for India to come to global power is quality. Many professionals have contributed to manage quality in India. Suresh Lulla is a very close friend of mine. He is really a leading guru who brought in several initiatives related to quality. Earlier, the focus used to be only what we call product quality. You perform, you bring out a product which has got a quality. But the focus continued, we have shifted relatively more toward the processes and systems. They had tremendous significance, please. That has resulted in its very high levels of product quality and service quality in the Indian industry. Most of the global companies now address what we call the poor quality costs. Many activities which have no significance whatsoever were knocked off. We have some of you must have heard of this lean management, etc., etc. In fact, the thought processes for most of us who managed quality in several organizations in the country, we were driven by the thoughts of some of the gurus like Dr. Duran, etc., which helped. For instance, if you see during 1970s or earlier, the well-established auto industry in United States was almost completely taken over by Japanese. The Japanese brought out tremendous amount of revolution as far as the auto industry and electronic industry, including cameras, etc., etc., by focusing on quality. So such a focus helped the country to improve the competitiveness and really saved billions of dollars. It helped the Indian industry, Indian service organizations to come somewhat nearer to the global standards. I can tell you during the period of 1970s in the country, the cost of production of steel in India was more than the imported cost of Japanese steel into the country. That was the situation. And then when we approached the government, I'm talking 1970s, the government protected us by declaring the import tariffs. There were import tariffs to the extent of over 250% of the CIF prices of the imported steel from Japan. That's how industry was protected at that time. It worked all right at that time, but the fact is it had a beating as far as the performance of India is concerned. Apart from that, there were several initiatives, please, like focus on ability, focus on attitudes. There was the labor union attitudes used to be distinctly different. Now there's a significant amount of change. India's focus approach has changed from islands of excellence towards the entire organizational excellence. I'll move on to 2 or 3 very important subjects. One is on the technology. If we talk of the information technology, India made tremendous amount of progress meeting to the global standards. We have 5 top Indian information technology exporters in the country: Tata Consulting Services, Infosys, HCL, Wipro, and Tech Mahindra. All these have developed the robust business models meeting to global standards, at the same time focusing on very high return ratios from financials point of view. And they continue to grow, addressing people, and more importantly, user-specific processes. They have established as global giants as far as IT industry is concerned in supporting the established companies in that line. They address to the technology obsolescence on a continuous basis by recruiting fresh talent every year. Last year, these 5 large Indian IT companies have added 230,000 employees, and they are positioned globally to meet the customers. Similar thing we find in the what we will call the standard or normal engineering industries. We have a large organization called Reliance Industries. It operates the world's largest refining complex in Gujarat. It's the world's largest refining complex, please. Having established by itself, now it's moving into establishing green energy in the country. This is what the chairman said. I quoted here. In the last 20 years, India emerged as IT superpower. In the next 20 years, I believe India will emerge as a superpower in energy, ending coal and oil dependence. The company is working in that particular direction. Their entire R&D focus is very much in achieving these competences. Like they want to achieve in the next decade, producing the green hydrogen. Their objective is to produce at less than $US a kilo and disperse the same at $US a kilo. It is already a global organization as far as Reliance is concerned. It is moving towards not only maintaining its position globally, but also into the new areas of energy. When we talk of medical science, medical services in the country, medical tourism is a growing sector. It's worth $5.5 billion, please. Annually, India receives around 500,000 overseas patients. They are attracted towards India due to several factors. I listed down just a few. The medical costs in India are low, significantly low. They are at least 20% cheaper for identical services abroad. Typically, a knee operation or knee replacement costs in India around 1,000 British pounds against maybe around 8,000 pounds also in UK in the private sector hospitals. In India, there is no waiting period, please. India has the latest medical technologies and facilities. Government of India has eased the travel. You can get a medical visa within 24 hours. All the hospitals, major hospitals, they comply to global quality standards. They get assessed on an annual basis. They have well-trained doctors. And more importantly, many of our medical doctors and paramedical personnel They speak very good English. So to that extent, they are multilingual personnel. In the case of the medical pharma industry, Indian pharma industry, last decades has been a phenomenal growth. It is the largest provider of generic drugs globally. It is third in terms of pharma production. It supplies HIV medicines at less than $1 in comparison to typically around $10 or so abroad. India has 3,000 drug companies and 10,500 manufacturing units, and the number is growing. Just to complete the story, the domestic market is typically around 42 billion in the year 2021. And the target is to increase it to 120 to 130 billions by 2030. The drug and pharma exports from India are currently around $25 billion. When we talk of pharma industry, we have to also keep in mind, or we have to talk in terms of research and development in that area. There is a conference in February 2022 where I was invited. I attended that conference. In that conference, the feeling was the Indian pharma and life sciences sectors has to graduate from being the pharmacy of the world to innovator of the world. These are the words of that in the conference, please. But the point is, when we talk of research and development in this area, the investments are of very high risk. They can be really accelerated or made successful only with a robust industry academia partnership, which is currently pretty low in our country. The return of investment uncertainty is too high. So in this area, it is the government of India which has to step in with proper support mechanism, support system in place. And I tend to feel it sure is a challenge because I don't see any activity in that particular area. In the area of biosciences, there is a certain degree of movement in the research and development in the pharma industry. In the last 2 years, the work on diagnostics, vaccines, antivirals, etc., have been phenomenal. Its revenue was 90 billion in the year 2021, and it is likely to definitely touch at least 150 billion ton by 2025. Let us look at the India's response to COVID-19 pandemic. It has been unique, and we can say it is very successful. Almost 85% of our population are already vaccinated for COVID-19. Having achieved that and having established enough significant amount of capacity of the production and distribution of COVID-19 drugs, the current focus by these organizations is to build on and move toward the rapid and sensitive and specific diagnostics covering various other diseases. the nation felt the need to have a national biopharma mission. And the nation is moving in that direction, addressing these issues. Let me talk of something on the work culture. Huge change between what it was about 50 years back and now. If we take the world economies like steel, cement, and tires, they are warming up to hybrid work culture with significant cost savings on office space, talent attraction, employee retention, etc. Earlier, there used to be an organizational loyalty. Today, that was not the focus. The focus is to retain only the learning employees, because technology is seeping into every single operation, even in the world economies. Productivities, scale of operations, etc., etc. And it's no more just to meet the local requirement, whether it is steel, whether it is cement, whether it is tires or anything. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, in 1970s, India was producing about 1 million tons of steel per annum. Today, India produces 120 million tons per annum, the second largest steel producer in the world. More importantly, the steel produced in India, the cost of steel production in India is quite in comparison with the cost of steel production anywhere in the world. So therefore, work culture point of view for the organizations as well as the employees, the focus is definitely shifting from local to global. Look at what is happening in the area of new technologies. Here, the behavior patterns are changing. I'm a consultant to a few of these companies. I can visualize this is happening year after year after year. Many believe that the coming decade will be a decade in India. I picked up these from the webinar which Times has organized, called it as Times Techies. They're able to deal directly with, most of the industries are directly dealing with the customers, retail customers, avoiding the middlemen. The entire activity is not only just production focus, but creating enough amount of infrastructure so that the product reaches to the end user. In a recent study, McKinsey has predicted that SaaS, that's what they call, that is software as a service from India, is likely to be $1 trillion market cap in the next decade. A huge change, please. Let me say a few words about the education and training. The country has 580 million people between 5 and 24 years of age. It's a huge opportunity in the education sector. We have 250 million school-going children, which is a large asset. With mobile revolution, in fact, 90% of the school-going children are now tech-savvy. It's a fantastic development that is taking place in the area of education. in the market of education, in the case of India, the education market is likely to grow to 225 billion by the year 2025. There is an issue that was being discussed as far as education is concerned is penetration to the rural areas. That also is getting addressed in this year of 2022, and where an allocation was made of about $7 billion for literacy, with literacy penetration actually, with focus on e-learning, machine learning, mobile learning, etc. In the case of learning processes, there are education institutes who are tending now to go into digital in everything they teach. What they teach is not just related to classrooms, it is moving toward the boardrooms. There is a mechanism which was brought in recently that is called the corporate parenting in India. Corporates are really nurturing this at the primary and secondary school level, essentially to create global leaders, so that there is a significant transformation in the learning process. A very recent major decision change, we have an organization which is called University Grants Commission. It's a nodal agency, and we need UGC approval for any college to give the college degrees. In fact, in the month of March, the regulations have been issued for 900 autonomous colleges. They can provide online degrees without bringing University Grants Commissions in order. When we talk in terms of the skill, that is where India is very much lacking. So whatever I said is fine, but in actual terms, not all is rosy. Indian industry gets 80% of its talent from tier 2 and 3 institutions. They just follow the curriculum, they hand over the degrees. There is a need for them to focus on internship, hiring of interns, etc., etc. And they have to still make the product that comes out from here as industry specific. We have very good ecosystem in polytechnics and ITIs, the industrial training institutes. They are also be getting supported by advanced training institutes, ATIs we call. There is a need for them to get tuned to industry specific skills and talents. That's where the focus has to be. When I mention this now about the youth, 45% of India's population is below 25 years of age. And we have an India Skills Report of 2015. That report says only 37% of surveyed people are employable. And only 10% of our labor force received the vocational training. In comparison to China's figure of 47%, Japanese figure of 80%, and South Korean figure of 96%. So there is a huge gap between what India is doing in the area of skill development in comparison to the global companies of other countries. India has some programs like Skill India, Make in India, etc. But while they are working in that direction, in my judgment, skill development ecosystem needs to have a greater focus in our country. A very quick coverage on semiconductors, please. Electronics is everywhere, resulting in huge shortage of talent, which was not felt even 5 years back. India is working to bridge the global semiconductor talent shortage in manufacturing, equipment operation, research, etc., etc. Currently, India's expertise is limited to only chip design skills. Others need to be addressed to come up to the global levels. Need has been identified. We're talking of a webinar which was conducted in February. Needs have been identified to vocationalize the semiconductor and silicon sectors in the country. They're providing a spectrum of skills to architecting systems, chips, trade skills, etc., etc. Currently, country is planning to invest 10 billion in the semiconductor ecosystem. India's semiconductor market was in the year 2020 was 15 billion, which is estimated to reach 63 billion by 2026. In this year, in the last 2 months, government of India received 5 proposals from various countries, global countries, who want to invest close to 20 billion. So India has brought out what is called a semiconductor mission, and it is still at the nascent stage. And if that gets implemented, let's say in the next 5 years, India could be a major competitor to silicon market in the world, particularly China and Taiwan. This just to indicate that because of the semiconductor shortage in the Maruti, which is India's largest car maker, which produced 1.86 million units in the financial year 2019, intends to increase the production to well beyond 2 million tons, 2 million vehicles with the semiconductor availability. So India's position, global positioning, is attributable to highly educated and talented workforce. We have pretty good education institutions like IITs. We have focused support from the political, economic, social sectors, etc. We have 12 Indian origin CEOs heading major organizations, global organizations like Microsoft, etc., who are providing appropriate support as the advisors. We have younger generation workforce. Economy is expanding in all fronts. We have a major military power, development of infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So several developments are taking place, which are helping India for the global positioning. In conclusion, I would say that 1991 is the turning point. Country has successfully implemented several initiatives to be globally ahead. It didn't happen just like that, but there is a systematic way of planning and implementation. Global positioning is conspicuous on many fronts. Current focus is to exhibit the brilliance in all chosen fields. I tend to feel the next 30 years will be golden years for the nation. Finally, I wish to acknowledge before you that I took input from several sources and many specialists where possible. I acknowledge them in the presentation itself at the bottom of each slide. I must express my special thanks to Mr. Naveen Dedia, who is in the United States for the past 30 years and an outstanding friend of mine. Mr. Suresh Lula, about whom I already talked to. Dr. N. Raghupat Rao, he is a surgeon in Apollo hospitals in Hyderabad. Dr. D. Ramohan Rao, he is an outstanding surgeon in UK. So with these inputs or whatever I felt I should communicate to you, I have summarized and tried to put it in a capsule. Thank you so much for listening to me. So I leave it with Richard, please now. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Rob. Very, very informative, very interesting. And thank you for putting all the effort and thought process in putting this together. Very informative. I'll throw it open to questions. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, or you can use chat, or let's use it verbally. Go ahead, please.
If you'd like to ask a question, you'll have to unmute yourself.
May I?
Go ahead,
Yes.
please.
Yes,
Yeah, please
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you to the wonderful information. My question is, it's about economics. It's getting your country to move forward economically, making more money. But do you take into consideration, I know I should be careful how I speak. I'm from Canada, so we don't have the same thinking sometimes, but the poor people, the people who have much less, when you make all these profits, who gains from that? You follow my question?
Yeah.
How much attention is put to helping the very poor and educating them? And
Yes, that's a very good question. The point is that actually statistics tell me that the difference between the rich and poor is widening in our country.
Mm.
Statistics tell me that. But when I walk into villages, when I look into, can you hear me please?
Yes, okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah. So when I walk into villages or when I interact with many of our own, employees, I get a feeling that for instance, education is quite deeper seepage into the lower levels of economy. Education is because we can see many people going to schools now, and we can see the considerable amount of knowledge being taught at the lower levels. Now, to what extent it is getting converted into or getting benefited by the lowest economy, it's very difficult for me to say that, please. But there is probably a certain degree of marginal improvement in that area. Now, when it comes to medical, I covered the education. The medical, there's a distinct change. The medical services are being available even at the poorest levels, and considerable amount of medicines are being available to them through various schemes at nominal cost, or if not absolutely free of cost. So I see a sea change as far as the medical services being offered to the poorest of poor in our country. Some degree of I can see some success in the area of education. These are the two major ones which I can see that. So that's what at least my observation, please, independent of statistics. Yeah.
May I add a little?
I have a,
Can I
have a
supplement what
question.
Dr. Rao said?
Yeah, please go ahead.
India provides subsidized food grains and protein like pulses to over 50% of the people, total population. And 2% of the corporate profits, profit before tax, is mandated to be spent on what's called CSR, corporate social responsibility, on health, education, sanitation, etc. And I'm involved in running a company, and we have great difficulty in getting people, even unskilled people, to get to work. So though on one side, the rich do very well for themselves, on the other side, the poorest and the poor are not left behind. In agriculture too, in the villages, it's very hard to get people to get to work. Maybe in a way, some of them have become lazy, getting cheap food and using whatever they earn for drinking. Drinking has gone up in a very big way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yes.
What proportion of the graduates from your education system are girls?
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
You're breaking up, Jim.
You are breaking up. The voice is breaking, please.
Try it again, Jim, please.
Do you hear the question? Okay. I'm graduate.
There's an audio problem.
The audio problem, yes.
Jim, could you put your question in the chat, please, if you could? Any other questions while we're waiting?
Hello.
Or Jim, you could try turning your video off, shut your video off, and your sound may come through.
Okay, I can try that.
You're sounding better.
I've turned off the video.
Yeah.
The question again is, what proportion of the graduate population are girls? What's the ratio of girls to boys in your educational system? No success?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's close to 50%.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Very clearly.
Yeah. No, at the school level, at the primary school and secondary school level, the girls are typically around 60%. 60 and 40 are boys. And but at relatively higher levels, the moment you go into the professional degrees and that type of a thing, the girl percentage is typically around 30 to 35%. But overall, if you see, the educated is, as Mr. Kumar said, it is typically around 50%, 50 each.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Girls leave after the school education because of various other reasons. Maybe economic, maybe they get married, or maybe social reasons, etc., etc. That's why at higher levels, the boys' percentage is much higher. Yeah, please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Question for you, Richard here. What is your balance of trade like, imports versus exports in your economy?
Pardon, I could not get you, please.
Your balance of trade, what is the difference between imports and exports from your country?
The imports are certainly significantly high. If you're talking in terms of the import bill, it's very significantly high, particularly of these a few major commodities like oil. And so the overall, if you see the balance between the two, the exports are relatively less. So that's where it stands at this moment of time.
How big of an impact does that have on your economy overall? Is this something your government is striving to change?
Yeah, you see, basically, when it comes to the food and food-related items, there is a significant production in the country itself. Maybe, some specifics, maybe a certain amount of imports may be there. But it only for certain engineering related goods, there are imports relatively more than exports. And defense takes away a very large chunk of, a chunk of that total imports, very large chunk. That's why there is a greater pressure from this year that, most of the defense units must be manufactured in India itself. But I think it will take a much long time to say that, okay, fine, in the defense field, India is totally self-reliant.
Just to supplement Dr. Rao, Richard,
Yeah.
when we talk about imports, generally people refer to the customs cleared imports or exports. But if you look at balance of payments, other things come in like export of services and invisibles. So we are have a major deficit of the order of 60% to 100, as far as imports and exports are concerned. 100 is imports, exports are 60 for customs cleared goods. But if you include the services, particularly software and other related IT products, balance of payments, we are okay. We are comfortable.
Very good. Thank you. Gaucher.
To what extent would India be impacted by the war in Ukraine? Because we hear that a lot of agricultural and food products worldwide come from either Ukraine or Russia. And I was wondering whether India is impacted by that.
No. As far as the agricultural products are concerned, the Russia-Ukraine fight doesn't have any impact, please. No, it has zero impact, if you ask me.
All right.
But it has impact as far as the oil imports are concerned. Though we do import the oil from Russia, that percentage of import is not very high. I tend to feel it typically around less than 10% of the total imports. So to that extent, it is as far as this conflict is concerned, it has, in my opinion, very little impact in those areas.
Except for cooking oil, which is getting hit badly.
Yeah. Yeah, there may be a few individual items per se, like palm oil, things of that nature, but it's not very significant.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Bob Cameron, you have a question.
Yes, I wonder, we've heard a lot about technology and growth. What about the arts and culture of the country and its growth? Could you comment on that? Arts and culture.
Which one, please?
The arts, music, the culture of the country.
Movie business.
Yeah.
Pardon, I do not understand that question.
He's talking, Raghav, about music and arts and shows like that. Cultural issues.
Yeah. Okay. In India, of course, the cinema is very popular. And quite many films are made with we call them, we name them as Bollywood films and Tollywood films, etc. Basically, these films are made at Mumbai, and films are made at Hyderabad, films are made at Chennai, etc. That is that I think is thriving a lot. I think the actors and actresses and all that, they make a lot of money in our country. By and large, I'm talking leading actresses and actors. And I have no comment as far as the art is concerned. We do have some artists, but I don't know to what extent we can say that it is really getting to global levels or global platform. We had some persons like M.F. Hussain, who is no more now. But I'm incompetent of commenting on anything like art or anything, please. I'm not very much into that. Anyone would like to add? Kumar Garu, would you like to add anything in that? Your view?
Yeah, this is Singaraja.
Singaraja Garu, please go ahead.
Mr. Rao,
yeah.
Thank you very much for your illustrious presentation on industry, technology and all. But taking cue from Mr. Richard and also others, the ancient India was very famous for art, culture, then textiles, food grains and all. And especially when I say art and culture, our architecture is marvelous. And even now, nobody can beat India. So similarly, we were exporting textiles, silks, and metals, and spices. All those things were there. Now the industrialization and automation only has taken over us, and we could not retain our skills and technology over our traditional items, which I have pointed out. We have been exporting all over the world, and the trade was there between China and India and to all the other European countries. So, what is your opinion?
No, I think your observation is very much valid. At least my, in fact, I think we are the largest spices exporter in the world, and so I tend to agree with your observations, please. And nothing more to comment on that.
No, I am wondering where our technology skill in architecture, marvelous architecture skills have gone. It has been, my opinion is, it has been taken over by automation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. This is the feeling we can, yeah.
Any other questions from? Okay. I have one question I was thinking about is when you think about your production capabilities in India, how do you look at yourself from a conversion cost versus China, India, North America, Mexico, Europe? Are you, if you're going to make something, we look at our conversion cost over here, and what we've seen in North America is the transition from, particularly the heavy industries. We moved from the northern U.S. or Canada to southern states, then to Mexico, and then to China. So I'm just wondering how your conversion charts compare, particularly to China.
Well, you see, there is not a significant trade or any type of relationship with China. from as far as India is concerned, our imports or anything are very insignificant from China point of view. Basically, as a country, India never invaded or India is never occupied the neighbor's land or anything of that nature. So that has been traditionally, that has been the case of this country. So we never invaded. Others invaded India, honestly, if you ask me. Now, that is the situation. Now, at the border between China and India, we do have certain degrees of discomfort, and that continues. I mean, it doesn't make any great impact as far as India's progress is concerned. That's one. And then secondly, from even there are a few students who go to China for studying medicine. Just like they have gone to Ukraine. The Ukraine has quite many Indians. Like that, there are a few people who go to China for medical studies. And some of them, I think most of them, they do return with that degree. That's because it's relatively cheaper there in comparison to studies, medicinal studies in India. Otherwise,
No more questions. I think we should probably thank everybody for attending today. Very informative presentation. Thank you for your attention, and thank you very much for joining us. And if anybody have any follow-up, certainly this meeting was recorded and will be on our website in the next 24 to 48 hours.